Okay, so we'll just resume the meeting then. I'll start the land acknowledgement from the top. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. I just wanted to take this moment to comment about the passing of former chief of the Saugeen First Nation, Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, Vernon Root. I was privileged to attend his funeral a few days ago, and he was obviously a great chief of the Saugeen First Nation and a great friend to our community, and the people of Saugeen Shores express our condolences to the people of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation on his passing. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. Okay, so that moves us on to disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare at this time. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm declaring a conflict of interest with item 8.4.5, which is under correspondence or communications. The town of Fort Erie controls on Airbnb, VRBO, and others which affect municipal rentals resolution. I own a property which is rented on a short-term basis and have a potential pecuniary conflict of interest in matters related to policy on such rentals, including our municipality's possible support for this resolution.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask are there any other members who have pecuniary interest to declare at this time? Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments, no open forum requests this evening, no delegations this evening, no public meeting. So we're on to item 8, which is report of municipal officers and committees. And staff reports under 8.2, and the first one is a shoreline protection and trail repair strategy and 2023 work plan. And we'll turn that over to the manager of engineering services.
Good evening, Your Worship, and through you to councillor. So in last May, we submitted a request to transfer 590K for the shoreline protection to our existing budget 300K, and council approved that. So we actually have approved for 890K for this project. In that meeting, we mentioned that maybe we cannot spend all the amount 890K, but we'll try our best. And then also after that approval, actually, we retained BM Ross to come up with a multi-year strategy for the entire shoreline trails and also Miramichi Bay trails. So in May, the town staff and also BM Ross, we actually inspected the entire shoreline, and then we accordingly BM Ross actually came up with a multi-year strategy, which is table 1. So for 2023 and 2024, we have identified Reach A for our first priority, and then we also have Reach B for 2025. For 2026, we have D, and the last year in 2027, we have Reach F and H. I have attached a map for all the reaches in the report. So for this year, for 2023, actually, we splitted Reach A into 3 segments. Because we already tendered it out and we received the bid price, So we already estimated that the bid price will be over our budget amount because we have 890K and BM Ross estimated the amount would be around 1.4 millions. So within Reach A, the first section, I think that is around 205 meters length. That's identified as Reach A1, and the further north, Reach A2 and Reach A3, which is severely damaged. So we splitted the tender into provisional bidding option. A1 is the option 1 and A2 and A3 combinedly option 2 or provision 2. After we received the price, we did our evaluation, and since A2 and A3 is actually mostly damaged and impacted by the wave action, and we lost 50% of trail. So based on our approved budget, we decided to go with A2 and A3 for this year. And then additionally, for the tow line treatment for A1, that means if we can complete the tow line for A1 as well this year, then next year we can start the work in April, because we will not need to work in water next year. So that's the breakups we already have in the report. So we are planning for total 653K for this year, 2023, and then for rest of the A1 will be next year projects, which is outlined on the proposed 2024 projects. The amount will be around 820K for next year, excluding the amount for the tow line. And as you know that we have an existing access from the trail to the lake, which is a concrete stairs. And we actually did not build this stairs. It was privately built. Recognizing that there is a public demand or request to keep the stairs, we have requested BM Ross to evaluate the existing stairs and come up with their recommendation for these stairs. So BM Ross actually recommended 3 options. Option 1, trail access in North Shore Park, that will cost us around $12,000 plus HST. Option 2, a ramp access at in the vicinity of 66 North Shore Road, in between A1 and A2 and A3, there is a convenient location that we can build a ramp there. And the option 3, a stair at the same location of option 2. Reconstructing a stairs in the same location is not actually, according to BM Ross, is viable, because there are some compliance we need to maintain if we do a staircase, like railing is a must. So the existing stair does not have a railing. And if we actually select the ramp option, which will be with 8% slope, that will not require a railing. So that's, and also like staircase will need a significant operation and maintenance cost, and also like manpower, our operation staff, they have to maintain these stairs, because it has to be removable. We have to take it, remove these stairs during fall, and then put it back in the springtime. That is another like huge operational effort we will need if we want to build a stair. So based on all of these challenges, BM Ross recommended their first preference to build a ramp within North Shore Park. And having said that, building a ramp within the North Shore Park will be delayed because we need the master plan approved by the council for the park and also like other approvals. Option 2, ramp within the vicinity of 66 North Shore Road, actually, it's already been, we received all the approvals and everything for that location, but it will be costly. And it will need also some operational effort to maintain that ramp in that locations. So what we actually recommend maybe if council approved, then we can build a ramp in the 66 location, and in future we can build another ramp within the North Shore Park. That's our option, and we don't recommend option 3, which is building a stair down to the lake. So that's all for the DCR project. Financial impact, as we said, that we already have 890K approved by this council, and we are estimating another need of 3.1 million for 24 to 27 projects for 4 years projects. And we are also working to secure some grant funding from multiple sources. And we are working with Grant Match, our grant application consultant. We actually already submitted 2 grant applications and waiting for their results. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
And sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
We have Steve Jackson from BM Ross. If you have any questions, he can also answer.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So there is a recommendation that council receive the shoreline protection and trail repair strategy and 2023 work plan report for information, and the council directs staff on the preferred option to provide access to the lake from the North Shore Road Trail. And just so I'm clear, Rahul, on your recommendation around what to do with that North Shore or that access to the lake, you're recommending option 2, and with the potential for council to consider the North Shore Park access sometime down the road once the North Shore Park master plan is complete. Is that the recommendation?
Thank you, Your Worship. We are asking actually council's direction,
right,
for any recommendation that actually provided by BM Ross. I'm just maybe I need to clarify on tow line work. In our design, we have to embed big rocks on the lake base, lake level, main level, and then we have to work on the bank to protect the bank. So to work in water, we need actually permit from fisheries, and there is a restriction that we can work only in water line or in water in between July 15 to September 15. So we cannot work out of this range. So that's why I said if we can complete the in-water work this year, we don't have to work next year in water. So we'll be out of that restrictions.
Okay, so we can have some conversation on the recommendation, and we will be looking for your comments around the access questions. So after we have some comments, then I'll try to come up with a synopsis of your views, and hopefully we can get some direction forward. So questions or comments? Councillor Halpin and then Davinsky.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I like the idea of the ramp option. And I like the way it's moved a little bit further down as well to that lower elevation. I still think a high water event might be challenging for that ramp. And so I'm in favor of that option. I was just curious though, with the reaches that you have for like 26 and 27, those sections of the trail really didn't experience any damage in the last high water event. Is that correct?
We actually had some damages. We already fixed it.
Okay.
In the some area, we already fixed it. And the recommendation from BM Ross for 26 and 27 is
They're talking about moving it further
reach,
up the
yeah,
bank.
reach D and reach F and
Mhm.
A's.
Mhm.
So actually, for reach T, the existing trail is very low, very close to the water level. So the recommendation from BM Ross, just to relocate them little bit higher level so that we'll be out of the risk for high wave impact.
Right.
And
Okay.
then strengthen the existing bank.
Right. Okay, so are they gonna move it up the bank or are they just gonna raise the elevation of the trail?
But it will be just up the bank at the
Okay.
at the middle of the bank. Now we are almost at the
Right.
toe of the bank.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Rahul. Thank you for your report. And of course, not of course, but I focused on this existing concrete steps and the new. I like the idea of the ramp where it would become accessible to many others, which doesn't happen at the existing concrete stairs. I'd like to know, and I hope I don't put you on the spot, the distance between the concrete stairs and the proposed access location. How far is that?
It is around 225 meters, north of the existing location.
Okay. And I don't know how, Mr. Mayor, how new this map is, but it appears to me that all the people are living towards the existing concrete stairs, and that's where all of us have been getting our emails, I'm sure. Is there no way to successfully correct those existing stairs that would last? Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. In this question, I will request Steve to answer
Okay.
Mr. Councillor on this one, please.
Great. Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So I would compare this to if I was having a renovation done at my house and I had some electrical work in the way, some old knob and tube wiring. And as soon as the electrician comes in and moves it, and when renovation is done and they can move it back, and I'd say to them, well, why don't you just put in the knob and tube because it worked fine before? Well, we all know we have to, as soon as we touch something, we have to meet current codes. And that's really one of the primary issues here. So it's twofold at this location. It's the existing stairs now, you have to actually kind of walk along some of the armor at the top to get to them. And at the bottom, we'd actually need to create some sort of landing area. So I would say almost all things are technically possible with enough resources. We just, one of the things with this location would be the wave action, the sort of the ice piling in the winter. So whatever solution would go there would have to be removed in the winter. But the bigger issue is the landing at the bottom, which in BM Ross's opinion is just not feasible to do. We could price out that alternative and what it would take. Roughly speaking, we're sort of probably in order of doubling the cost of the stairs in the location of number 3. So again, it's technically possible, but it would be very expensive to do in that location, just because of the steepness to it and the fact that there's no landing area at that bottom for those stairs to go. And so with varying lake levels, people with those stairs, portions of it would be in the lake at different times, because we'd have to still get it down to a proper landing area.
I may, thank you. To continue, I agree, safety first. No doubt about it, and that's how the town feels as well. So this other access road or access location could very well be it. Then I ask council, mayor, whoever, if we did that, does that mean we're going to close this existing concrete stairs, and how do we monitor that? And if somebody continues to use it and hurts themselves, are we exposed?
I guess my understanding would be that they would be removed, correct?
Yes, it has to be removed.
Okay, so the stairs would be removed and that would solve that problem. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I got Councilor Mayette, and then I'll get the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Raul, for the presentation and Steve online. So the total distance of trail we're talking about was about 2 kilometers or so of trail that was damaged.
It's thank you for your worship through you to councillor. It is around 3.6 kilometer total length
Okay,
that was
3.6.
damaged. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to spend $3.85 million on 3.8 kilometers of trail. That works out to about $1,000 a meter. This is an awfully expensive trail we're putting in here. This is a significant asset we're investing in. Okay, and it's not an asset that generates any direct revenue. It's not like the pool or the rec center we're going to be building, or the Lamont Sports Park, which has, generating assets. So I have a fundamental problem with spending that kind of money on an asset that we've found out our history is that it doesn't stand up to Mother Nature. In fact, I'm impressed with the people who built the stairway, because it in fact lasted the high water experience that the rest of our trail that we spent $1.4 million, I think it was initially, to build a decade or so ago. So I have a fundamental issue with some of this, and I think the existing trail and the parts that were damaged when the water was high. And if the water comes back, and no doubt that it will, whether it's next year or 20 years from now, the water will come back up to that level. We've already invested a great deal in hardening that shoreline. I'm just uncomfortable with spending this kind of money on this asset, $1,000 a meter. I mean, boy, oh boy, that's an awfully expensive section of trail that generates, other than spin-off, it generates no revenue for the municipality. So I'm just having a bit of difficulty swallowing this whole pill. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The deputy mayor.
Thank you. And through you, I'm going to follow the same theme. I was conflicted about the report, but then, it comes down to basically what we're being asked for is direction related to an access route. And, the option 2 is about $45,000. That's a very, reasonable little sum of money. $3,850 is here though, and that's for 5 years, 2023 through 2027. That doesn't take into account the money that's already been spent on the trail. And I can remember, as I'm sure other people do, when that grant came from the federal government to actually build the trail. We were pretty excited about that. It's certainly cost us probably that much already to maintain the trail, and now we're looking at another big investment. I noticed, saw the shoreline. What was the title of the report? Something about shoreline. Well, we have the Captain Spence Trail on the shore in Southampton washed out too. We haven't done anything to fix that. That's a pretty well-traveled route. Certainly didn't cost millions of dollars, but it's been out of commission for a couple of years. We have a Pioneer Cemetery, and I'm looking forward to a report about that, but there's a shoreline issue there. It's the riverbank shoreline. But, we've got a shoreline maintenance significant issue there. We also have trail situations throughout the community that, people are looking for urban trails, sidewalks, if you will, in various areas. And, we're not necessarily installing lots of new sidewalks beyond what developers are building. So there's some older parts of town that are still, looking for sidewalk assistance or looking for bike trail assistance on the sides of various roads, which are pretty well-traveled corridors. So I'm glad that Councillor Mayette said a few things, because I would echo quite a few of those. And I appreciated your comment about, Councillor Halpin mentioned reaches F and H, and I think even B might have been in this, about, what happened there. Now, I confess I didn't, get down on my knees and examine every bit of it, but my sense of the damage on those sections of trail was basically debris was washed up and gravel, and basically the trail needed to be cleaned. So I would appreciate when this item comes back to budget consideration that we have a pretty detailed report about, what damage actually impacted the trail, and what we've done so far, what it's cost. And, then that gives us what we need to responsibly make a decision going forward. I'm very concerned about these items that are about relocating trails further up the bank. And it, again, you look at the map, and perhaps I'm a little bit out in terms of the geographical locations, but if we're concerned about moving a trail to get it further away from the water, like, what are we concerned about with the road in some places there? And, again, we've, as Councillor Mayette said, spent an awful lot of effort and money, putting in a lot of hard scaping along the shore to do what we can to protect it. And that road has been impacted in the past, well beyond, any of our times on council. And it will be impacted, I'm sure, in the future. But I just, I look at this and I think, geez, like, here we are ahead of budget conversations, and we're seeing an item that's looking at us already starting to think about millions of dollars when we really haven't even, thought about or had anything before us about some of the other very real issues, concerns, challenges, and requests of members of the public. And, I like option B2 or option 2 as well. But, as Councillor Davinsky said, it's further down from the people who are actually asking us about the access. So, if it's moved further down, I don't know if that's even going to be used by them. They might find another way to get down to the lake. So it's not a direct response to requests from residents. I was confused, and I guess, so I'm conflicted about the whole idea of spending all this money over 5 years when there's a lot of other trail situations and shoreline situations that I'd like to think are going to have their time at the top of an agenda soon, because, they've been waiting too. And certainly the Captain Spence Trail is very worthy of investment. It won't be millions of dollars, I don't believe, but you can't walk on that. I can, but it's a very rough walk. It washed out completely. It's well back from the shore. So, we kind of anticipated that, but we built it and then we really haven't fixed it ever. So, I'm concerned about just the prioritization of investment on the shore. There was a comment made though, about 2024 proposed work already being, the dollar figure was already there because it was in a tender. I just want to understand, have we already put out a tender for work in 2024, or is my understanding confused by the fact that maybe something came in a 2023 tender, but because the value was too high, it's been bumped over to 2024? I'm getting a nod from the CAO. Okay. But I hope that we have a much more complete report about what the damage has been, and why this should rise above some other priorities in the community right now because it's a very large ticket item. So I appreciate my colleagues on this side and I look forward to the further comments. But, you know, I realize it's going to come back to budget, but it's now on the table and we don't have anything else on the table related to recreational pursuits. Well, we do actually with Lamont and phase 3 and the Aquatics and Wellness Center, but we have trails in neighborhoods that they're called sidewalks. Some of them, downtown Southampton sidewalk is a mess too. Those are trails. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that we're going to have an awful lot of stuff to think about and not a limitless pool of money. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Further comments from members, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just Rahul, the ramp that we're in number 2, we're proposing, it's a ramp to where and for what? I mean, you know, is that the bottom? People entering down to the lake in that area, is that a rock bottom lake in there? Is it sand? The number of people that are going to go down there with beach towels, for example. Just explain to, I think I know the answer because I drove by there again today. But so what, for what and where? What would it be used for?
Yes. Your worship, through you. First, I need to answer some of the points that Deputy Mayor raised. First thing, last year, we spent, I think, around 685K for last year project. Out of that, actually, we got a grant, almost over 550K, and we spent only 126K for last year project, what we did. The other point is we will be not removing the existing years stairs until next year. And I think that by that time, if council approved the ramp option 2, it will be already in place before we remove the stair. The location for the option 2 is 66 North Road. There is a house called Huber House right across that house. And actually that location is convenient. It is shallow, the depth is low in compare with other locations. And we have a little beach area down there. So that's why that's a very convenient location to build a ramp.
Okay. That answers my question. I just, if we're going to invest that kind of money, you know, you want to make sure that it's going to get some usage, you know, and we're not putting it in for the sake of putting it in, that there will be good usage. I think that the 2024 budget discussions, we need to have a more holistic approach discussion around what the future 4 years look like. And I agree with our deputy mayor that what was the severity of the damage and what's been repaired so far, and you know, how important it is to replace those next 4 sections. I think the funds that have been approved in the 2023 budget, we need to proceed. I really am in support of proceeding with refurbishing the bank and the trails that needs to be, you know, fixed up. And you know, the North Shore Park, the North Shore Trail rather, is one of the most desired, appreciated trails in all Saugeen Shores that is used extensively, not only by the members of our own community, but by people visiting our community to ride on that shoreline trail. So as far as there's no spinoff to our community, I disagree with that a little bit, in that I've seen groups of 8 and 10 people come in and unload their bikes and ride our trails along the shore and have their lunch at Walker House and ride back again. That shoreline trail is desired by a lot of people in Saugeen Shores and further abroad. So I'm in support of certainly moving forward, spending the money we've already approved for this next phase. I think we need to have more discussion on on the next 4 years. And I guess, $3.1 million more is a lot of money, but that's a jewel in our community. And I think we need to keep it well maintained. And but Daniel, I guess I had a question to you, Mr. Mayor, to Daniel. The 800,000, I think, well, in the future too, will be funded from future capital reserve. Daniel, is that where some of these funds have come from for the 2023 allocation? Talk about the grant, and what is the balance in future capital reserve? Because I'm assuming that's where this will be funded from. Would it be, Daniel?
The treasurer want to take that?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor. The funding is from future capital reserve. In the 2023 budget, we did make a change where all capital taxation funding flows into the future capital reserve. So it is the fund that funds the vast majority of our capital projects. I don't have the balance of the reserve in front of me, but I can get that to you after the meeting.
It'd be interesting to know. And that number 2 option, just so I'm clear, that would have to be removed in the fall, put back in the spring, or not?
So it will be the materials will be the gravel and stone. So we don't have to remove the ram at all, but we will have some high wave damages. We have to just need to some operational effort to fix that every year.
And so I'm clear, option 2 has a railing or not?
No,
Right.
we don't
So-
need a railing for
Right.
a ram.
Correct. So it's phase 3 would be the more labor intensive one. The number 3 option of having to remove in the fall and put back in the spring would be number 3, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So anyways, Mr. Mayor, I'm in support of moving forward with what we've already approved. And I'm not in a disagreement. We need to have a lot more discussion for the next 4 years. But I think that trail is a really important part of our infrastructure in our community. So expensive, yes, but well used.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Get Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I use that trail 3 times a week probably, and there's always a lot of traffic on it. I echo the Vice Deputy Mayors that we continue with these reaches. I personally, the reaches for 26 and 27, I'm not sure how necessary they really are. Like the damage to those areas, in my humble opinion, was not severe. And if it comes, I like to try to be a fiscal conservative here, and I think that we reevaluate that after this first necessary section is fixed. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's just important to be real clear that we're not being asked to approve any of that funding. That'll be actually the next council would consider that for the 2027 budget, right? So I think it's not a matter that we need to concern ourselves with too much at this point, or even over the next few years. Do you have the Director of Development Services?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to offer a couple of comments on the purpose, partly the purpose of the project and partly the purpose of the report. The purpose of the project, we've titled it Shoreline Protection and Trail Repair. And the most important part of that is shoreline protection. And it's really shoreline and road protection. So this trail is really unlike any other trail in the community. And then that trail is providing a buffer to the road. And so we're investing significant money in protecting our shoreline that is adjacent to a road that also has a trail along it. The repair of the trail is a much smaller part of the cost of the overall project compared to the work that's going to be done on the bank to protect the bank. And I would submit that we would probably need to repair the bank whether or not we were repairing the trail to protect the road over the long term. So I just wanted to distinguish this project from any other trail in the community because it's really also about investing in protecting the road. And then in terms of the purpose of the report, we will be shifting in the fall to a 10-year capital planning budget, and that'll be a very extensive and detailed conversation. And we thought we would take this opportunity in advance of that to put a multi-year perspective on this project for council to get a feel for what we're going to be talking about at budget, which certainly will be more detailed conversation at that point, but we're starting to get in the habit of previewing council on some of these bigger conversations that span multiple years. I just wanted to offer those thoughts, Mayor.
Yeah, and thanks for that. I really appreciate you guys. Instead of just presenting the next phase in this part of the 2024 budget, showing us the entire commitment that we might be looking at for this entire project. I think it helps council get a sense of what this whole initiative might look like should we choose to advance each of these processes. And as has been noted, it's always about priorities, and every budget is about setting priorities and determining which priorities you're going to pursue and which you aren't, in balance with all the others. So I think every year, as council looks at each of these phases, we will decide whether or not we're going to proceed with them in the context of the entire budget, and whether that's necessary and whether it makes sense. So I think absolutely, I just put my cards on the table right now. I think what's proposed for 2023, 2024 is necessary work. It must be done. The trail has to be restored and repaired, and the road needs to be protected, as Mark points out. So I think this work is essential, and I certainly support advancing it as part of the 2024 budget discussion. And as we go forward and look at 25, 26, 27, I think we'll look at each of those in turn, decide how critical they are, and at them or not based on what we think the priorities are. But when it comes right down to it, the North Shore Trail is, as the Vice Deputy Mayor I think rightly points out, I mean, I get more positive comments about our work on the North Shore Trail. Thanks for restoring it, and more positive comments about that trail than just about anything else in the municipality. It's one of the most popular investments this council has ever made, in my experience, and it's certainly something I hear about from the public a lot. And we've made big investments. If you take what we've already spent and this in here, the restoration project is around the $4.5 million mark if you were to do all of this all the way out. And I've said that to people, this is a very expensive project. We spent about 1.1 million 10, 15 years ago to build it. Now it's more than 4 times the cost just to restore it. I never hear from the public, don't spend that money. They never tell me, I never hear people say, that's foolish money, Luke. You're crazy to spend that, right? People want to see this trail functional. I agree that some of these we could look at down the road and decide maybe they aren't absolutely essential to make sure the trail is workable. What the public wants is for the trail to be a functional trail. And so I think for me, my own personal perspective is that's what I want to see us deliver, a functional North Shore Trail. And certainly these 2023, 2024 investments are necessary to achieve that. So those are my views. And on the question of the access, it sounds like I've heard a pretty good consensus on option 2. I don't see maybe the Deputy Mayor has a different view. The Deputy Mayor?
No, it's not a different view. It just was very specifically mentioned that it's right in front of a sign that has my last name on it.
No.
That's not where I live.
We could call it Diane's Trail.
Well, I just we're not talking about a nice ramp to a beach for me.
Okay.
It's there's a generations back connection, but not a direct relation. But it's not where I live.
Duly noted. So I've heard pretty good consensus around option 2. I don't hear nobody is saying no to that. So what I'm going to do is just alter the recommendation slightly. So it would be that council receive the shoreline protection and trail repair strategy and 2023 work plan report for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with option number 2 to provide access to the lake from the North Shore Road Trail. Okay. So nothing further, then all in favor of that recommendation? And opposed? That's carried. Okay. All right. So now we will move on to our second staff report, which is the second quarter 2023 variance to budget report, and the treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second quarter variance to budget report gives a summary of the corporation's financial operating results through the second quarter of 2023. A significant favorable variance to budget has accumulated, with an expected budget surplus of approximately 1.6 million, primarily composed of higher than budgeted interest income and labor budget surpluses from new positions that have not yet been filled and other vacant positions. I just want to point out that in the case of the higher than expected interest income, That income is a result of nominal interest rates earned on town reserves. Those reserves are to act as a store of value for the municipality and therefore need to grow in order to protect the purchasing power of those reserves in the face of inflation. As opposed to the 1% to 2% interest rates seen in past years, the town is now receiving an interest rate in the range of 5%. But there has also been inflation to a similar degree. So although the municipality has a significant favorable variance from interest income, it's important to either budget that interest income to reserve or to ensure that the budget surplus is put to reserve, especially in this inflationary environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there is a recommendation that council receive the second quarter 2023 variance to budget report for information. Are there questions or comments for the treasurer, the deputy mayor?
Thank you, and through you. Two questions. The report gives us a chart with, the pluses and minuses year to date and actuals, budgeted and actuals. The numbers for development services, the revenue seems to be down about $100,000. Is the expectation that that'll all even out by the end of the year? Or, is there something that's causing that reduction? I have a second question, but I'll let you answer that one first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What's shown for revenue in development services is shown as an unfavorable or negative variance. So it does show that we are below budget on our development services revenue at this point in the year and expect to finish the year in that position. Primarily, that is derived from building permit revenues, which are lower than budgeted, still healthy in a historical context, but just below what we've budgeted. That does not impact our tax stabilization reserve or our future capital reserve. It just impacts our building reserve, which has a very healthy balance.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about this at budget time too, because of course, we're doing all we can do to try and get houses built. And then if building permit numbers are down, there's something there that's not connecting. My second question, and I probably know the answer, but just in the event, and hopefully there will be an accumulated surplus at the end of the year, where does that go? How is that applied to the overall town budget?
So that surplus will flow according to our reserve policy. We will be bringing our revised or new reserve policy to council later this fall. But generally those types of surpluses go into a tax stabilization or future capital reserve, something to save for future capital spending or operational spending.
Further comments, Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I had a similar question. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the comment about where the surplus revenues actually end up. And you've answered that, Daniel. Thank you. Under corporate services, $829,515 as a surplus to date. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct, and that
could
relates to the interest income that I spoke of.
So that is it solely that reason, 829,000?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? I don't see any. So you've heard the recommendation on that. I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Okay, so now we're moving on to item number 3, the special levy report and the treasurer.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The special levy report summarizes the history and some context surrounding the 2 special levies that are approved by council in both the fees and charges bylaw and the final tax levy bylaw, and that are subsequently applied to final property tax bills. These special levies are named the Waste Management Fixed Fee and the Police Building Capital Charge. This report is being brought forward in response to past questions and requests from council in regards to certain properties and certain property types that receive these charges. As outlined in the report, the fixed charges are applied to every assessable property in the town, regardless of the assessed value of that property. The report highlights 4 potential options or paths forward for council consideration and comments. If council requires more detailed information on these charges or on the nature of different property types, staff will return at a later date with more information and also potentially make a recommendation based on council's initial feedback. If there is a change in methodology, it could be included as part of the 2024 business plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there is a recommendation that council receive the special levy report for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you very much for the report, and I'm quite happy to see in there that what I've been recommending for some time now is that the properties in, well, mostly if not all in Saugeen Ward that are farm properties that are vacant, either vacant land or farmland that are being charged this special levy for the landfill when in fact there's no building, so technically they don't produce any waste that goes to landfill. And I've been thinking or recommending this for some time now, so I'd like to see that in there, and I hope that this gets some traction when we get into the budget talks, because there are 66 properties, and as the mayor will know, the pressure on the agricultural sector is particularly high this year. The cost of fertilizer, the cost of fuel are all going up, and there's downward pressure on the cost of the commodities they're producing, and especially in the case of grains and corn and those types of things. So any relief for those people in the agricultural sector is welcome, and I hear about it all the time from the people in my section. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments about this report, Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too know of one constituent. It's just one, but there's a lot of properties that are affected. It has a piece of property that is landlocked, has no infrastructure services, and no hope of building on the land. This taxpayer already pays full pop on his adjoining property for waste management and police, but he's still being charged again for this extra piece of land that has nothing on it. So really, we're doubling his tax bill in this instance, and that's simply not fair. I'm glad it's up for discussion now. And I know if any change comes, it likely would be January 1st. And we can live with that. But I've been working on this one ever since I've been on council. And I'm glad to see we're at this point. I'm a very happy person because of that. But let's move it forward and be fair to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you. The value of the service that both of the special levies represent, each and every property owner in our community derives some benefit, some more than others, but some benefit from those services. So, you know, when the levies were introduced, there was validity to the conversation at the time, and it's good to revisit it now and think about it. You know, the fact that the police services one was reduced when some debt situations were rationalized and realized in real time. You know, that was a good advancement too. I don't know if I'm thinking of the same property as Councillor Davinsky, but one I've heard about recently. I don't think it happens anymore, but once upon a time, if you bought an adjacent property to your own property, they were deemed and went into being one lot. That doesn't automatically happen anymore, but there are a couple of those situations in our community. And, you know, so there's a residential structure on one lot, but an adjacent lot has been purchased. And in some cases, there are structures there. They're not residences. There might be barns or storage units there, but technically the property is looked at as one unit. So we have a number of those. There's also the idea of landlocked. There are some real properties that, you know, the ones that are valued at under $10,000, there's got to be a reason why the valuation is there. Chances are that means that, you know, it's hazard land. There's no way anyone can ever build on it. But, you know, it would be good to get a little more information about the categories of quote unquote vacant properties. Because the ones at the lower assessed values make perfect sense to me, because there's probably a very good reason why the assessments are low, and it's likely that nothing will ever be built there. Landlocked properties, though, that I've heard about, there are unopened road allowances throughout the community, that some of those properties are abutting those unopened road allowances. So technically they could someday be built on. So those lots are not there. They might appear to be landlocked, but if there's an unopened road allowance there, there is the potential for that to be a real lot. I had asked a question, and maybe Daniel, Jim, I think you responded to me today. It was about the report that we received mentions 33 properties with an assessed value under $10,000, 56 with an assessed value under $20,000, and 96 rural farm properties without any structures, as well as additional farm properties with no residences. So there's 96 in that category. I'd asked about just straightforward vacant lots. So I think that number pushed that up a little bit too. Do you happen to have the number that you sent to me earlier today? I just didn't print the email off.
Yeah, the number is approximately 850 total vacant properties, with probably the majority of them being awaiting development, lots that have been severed and are awaiting development.
So the report, lumped in vacant properties, but there's different categories there that I think we should, look carefully at. I also hope that going forward that we isolate the two streams, because there's a very real difference. And the landfill, the waste management one, we're spending the millions that have been collected now on some improvements at the Southampton landfill. That was the point, because if we weren't tapping into property owners to prepare ourselves, we'd be hit with millions of dollars at a single time. So each of us that owns property, that's an investment worth making. However, I can appreciate the differences between assessed values and vacant versus lots that are built on. The police services one, though, is a different thing. The police provide protection to property throughout the whole community. So again, there might be some adjustments there, but I look forward to continued discussion, and I appreciate receiving the report. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments, Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report, Daniel. I did actually have a discussion with Daniel over email, and this is an issue that is related to people who live in condo associations where they are assessed by the association a waste management fee. So I had an inquiry from a gentleman wondering about why he's paying for the landfill fee when his condo association is collecting money from him to cover a waste management fee. And I expect this applies to other condo groups around. I think we actually had an issue like this come to council maybe 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I'm ultimately, I think this is an issue that has to be resolved between the condo owner and the association. But, as Daniel, I just wanted to address it because I think a number of people are talking about this. The condo association, as Daniel pointed out to me, anybody who lives in a condo is not limited to just deal with their waste through that waste management fee. They have every right to use the landfill however they want to see, however they want to use it. If they want to clean out their house and go use the landfill, they can do that. But I'm just bringing that up as an issue. And I guess it's something that I think is an arrangement that's best dealt with between the condo owner and the association.
Okay, thank you. Are there further comments? Yeah, Councilor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I kind of side with Councillor Mayette, and I think that I like option 2. And I understand if you have vacant land and everything like that, So I can live with that option. People also in the condos, like if they're paying someone to take their garbage still ends up in our landfill. Right? Sometimes. Okay, thank you.
Further comments to this one? I think it's always the way when you get into discussing a thing like this, there will people will come up with as many reasons why they shouldn't pay as there are stars in the sky, right? I mean, there's which is why it's applied just generally to all properties in the municipality. I'm quite supportive of the status quo. I think I think there are a million different ways you could slice it, and you're going to always dissatisfy somebody. I would say, I'm probably going to go in a different direction than Councillor Mayette expected me to, but you have to remember those 96, the farm properties in this municipality pay less than 20%, like sort of like 15%, not even, 86% of taxes of this municipality are paid by residential properties, right? They pay a lot. Our residential property taxpayers support the entire municipality. Farm properties pay a tax ratio at 0.25% of taxes. Farm property owners make out pretty well under the property tax system. Do they need another discount? I'm not sure. In fact, I don't think they do. I just be clear, I don't think they do need another discount on property taxes, particularly since they're heavy users of our landfill and they use, all of those services. They're corporate entities very often. I think, maybe there's an argument with these 33 properties and 56 properties under 20, maybe you can look at assessed value. But again, you start parsing that out and you're just going to start having people raise their hands saying, why not me? Why not me? Why not me? I like the simplicity of this. The landfill benefits the whole municipality. The police force benefits the whole municipality. And in the end, when you own property, you have obligations to the municipality to support the services that support life in the municipality. So one way or the other, these services have to get paid for. This council over the years has settled on this structure with these special levies. I like that structure. I certainly do not support looking at changing to a special levy rate or incorporating these items into the tax levy. Perhaps there are some exemptions we could consider, but I think where I would settle would be on the status quo. So those are my views, but we'll see where we end up. We're going to get some information on this coming forward as part of the 2024 business plan, and we will discuss it then and have a vote and see which direction we're going to go. But for now, you've heard it for information. I'll ask all in favor of that recommendation, and that's carried. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4, which is the ward boundary and council composition review. Sorry, different Freudian slip, and we'll get the clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So it has been 25 years approximately since the town amalgamated into the town of Saugeen Shores. Additionally, there has been unprecedented growth in the municipality, which means this is an appropriate time to do a ward boundary and council composition review. It is a practice of good governance, but also part of the town's overall growth management. This report, if approved, is directing staff to include, is to be received for information for staff to be including this potentially in the business plan for 2024. The work, if approved, work would begin in earnest in 2024, anticipating the recommendation to council by the end of the year, which would give staff and impact sufficient time to implement any approved changes following the mandatory appeal period. An arm's length consultant would be retained to conduct engagement and provide recommendations or options to council for your consideration. These recommendations or options could be several different types of changes or even status quo. It was suggested as well in the report that council may direct staff to come back with a policy on a routine review of ward boundaries and council composition. I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a recommendation, and thank you, that the council receive the ward boundary and council composition review report for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the clerk for bringing this forward. I'm going to support this. I think doing a review and getting an opinion on where our ward boundaries are and where maybe they should be is something that we should do periodically, and 25 years seems like a good period for that. I can see where they're not going to make Saugeen Ward any bigger, because I mean the growth, all of the, I wouldn't say all, but certainly the vast majority of the new housing and the new residential growth has been in the current boundary of Saugeen Ward. And so obviously the logical way to go would be to make the Southampton or Port Elgin ward bigger to take in those urban areas into those wards. It's not going to go the other way. But there are some considerations that need to be thought about, and one is the West Aereo versus Hydro One boundary. So currently, Saugeen Ward is supplied by Hydro One for their electricity services, and Port Elgin and Southampton are supplied by West Aereo. And if you change those boundaries, there's an implication that may change those. And I was only a couple of years ago, I was actually recommending that those boundaries be looked at for that very reason, because quite frankly, the rates for West Aereo are preferable to the rates for Hydro One for delivery charges and things like that. So, so just to make your consultant aware, that could be an implication. And other than that, I think it's a good time to have a review. And yes, maybe status quo is one of the options, and it should always be one of the options. Same can be said for the last couple of reports that we had. Status quo is always a good option. Thank you.
Thank you. I just really want to clarify that for the public on the question of West Aereo Hydro One. I don't think our ward boundaries will impact the service area of Hydro One or West Aereo Power. You have to imagine, right, that Hydro One isn't going to surrender service territory just because we change our ward boundaries, right? So I wouldn't want the public to think that that's on the table or that that's a decision we're making right here. I think that that's a decision made at another level by through a totally separate process. Is there further comments on this report? Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In this report, through you to the clerk, we're talking about ward boundaries and so on. Is there, in this study, if approved, will we be talking about no boundaries? In other words, election at large. Is that going to be considered as well?
Through you, Mayor Sharp, no. I don't want to predispose, of course, what the consultant is going to come back with. But in my experience, that can be one of the things that they look at, where there is a completely at-large system, which there are some municipalities that have that. I know, for example, City of Stratford, I believe they still have that. They did a while ago anyways, where everybody is at large and you vote. Say there's 15 people running and you have 7 seats, everybody gets essentially 7 votes, right? That they can choose for their members of council. So that would be an option. There could be any manner of, like I said, council composition, how they wish to draw ward boundaries. And if I may, also the mayor was quite correct. Usually ward boundaries don't really matter to a whole lot of other institutions other than for the purposes of a municipal election, generally speaking. And then the yeah, pretty much that's the only use that they're used for, is for elections. So yeah, it could be any possible configuration.
Yeah, and I wasn't looking for an answer the consultant may give. I just wanted to make sure that the consultant would consider that aspect. I personally don't like it at this particular point in time, but it's something that should be looked at. And the other one, and this is a tough one, and it's with all due respect, is the position of the vice deputy mayor. And Mike, I don't mean it. Do we need a vice deputy mayor? Type thing. Now, I'm not saying answer yes or no. I'm saying, will this be part of the study?
So, thank you through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Council composition will mean all positions.
Okay.
So it is the leadership, if I may refer to them as leadership. In this is the mayor, deputy mayor, vice deputy mayor. It is a unique position, of course, which I don't know what the consultant will say. And the most important thing as well, people are kind of giggling a little bit for those at home who may not hear it. It's not about a person, it's about a
No,
position.
It's a
right? That's the
position,
most
absolutely.
With regards to everything to do with council composition. It has nothing to do to reflect on any person who may be on council at the
No.
time. And so certainly, and it is being a unique position, you know, the consultant is going to come back with their recommendation. There's the one that I have been through in my former municipality. They went out to the public with 4 options, right? So the public had the ability to go to these open houses and provide their comments on these 4 different options. Members of council, of course, had the right to do that as well, go to the open houses if they wanted to. And for all we know, there may be a very large percentage of members of the public that come out to that and say, I really like the fact that we're unique with our vice deputy mayor. We don't know what the public's going to
Okay,
say.
and I just
So,
wanted to
yeah.
make sure that that was
Mhm.
going to be
Yeah.
part of the discussion, maybe tossed out in an instant. But at least we can say, hey, we looked at it.
Mhm.
I just want to say we have Ontario's very best vice deputy mayor, possibly the best vice deputy mayor in the world in the town of Saugeen Shores. So I just want everybody I don't want there to be any doubt of that at all at this moment. So we'll go to the deputy mayor and then the vice deputy mayor.
Well, you know, we've had good ones in the past too. So, you know, I think maybe Mike and I should generate a list of in 25 years, all of the vice deputy mayors so that, you know, Doug Gowanlock and Luke never had that job. So, you know, he's not in our gang. But I think the timing of this is really good in that the consultant's work and the potential for community engagement and all of that lends itself very well to creating a little bit of buzz and excitement at the right time ahead of the next election. And so, you know, that certainly to me is a very powerful, positive thing in the community. So, you know, I look forward to this and, you know, the vice deputy mayor gig was a good one, but it is a weird little title and a weird little role, but good people have the job and have had the job. Thanks.
Vice deputy mayor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I am the only vice deputy mayor in all of Ontario, and it's they're distinguished, right? But told lots of people that story, and yeah, if you look at Stats Canada, it's listed in there. But Dawn had mentioned, and you know, for $60,000, Dawn had mentioned that a consultant may, I think the word was may, consider taking a look at the, you know, the vote at large versus the ward system, vote by representation, by population, by assessed value. I think I don't think it should be may. I think that we should for $60,000. I would hope that it would be included, that we don't rely on the consultant to come back and tell us what we think we should do. I think it's 20, you're right, 25 years since amalgamation, and great time to do it. I'll be supporting this and take a look at it. But I think once and for all, because I've had many people over my 9 years in council talk about vote at large versus the ward system. So some people say to me that Saugeen Township has the largest assessed value of the 3 wards. Whether it's right or not, happen to believe maybe it is. With all those waterfront properties and all the subdivision behind Independent, maybe they should have 3 votes, you know, versus 1 and 2 or 3. you know? So I think that Don, and council, I think it's a must. I think we need to take a look at it, you know, whether it's the vote at large or the ward system and how many votes per ward, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope we're not going to rely on the consultant to tell us that. I think we should be doing it. So anyways, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments? The only comment I would make is I'm content to have the review. It isn't the first time in 25 years it's been reviewed. It was reviewed. There was a referendum on the ward system back in 2003, I think, or 2002, something like that. So it has been reviewed in the past. At that time, it was the community chose to retain the current system. And what I would say for me, the only red line I would draw is that whatever changes are made ought to be made by the public via plebiscite. The composition of this council, the existence of the wards is the purview of the people, not the purview of council. This is the public system. And so I don't think any change ought to be implemented for the 2026 election. If we wish to suggest or recommend changes to the public that could be forwarded as part of a plebiscite in 2026, I don't know whether I'd favor them or not, but I would absolutely only support making changes in that way and no other way. So with that, I've heard nothing further, so we'll ask all in favor of the recommendation. That's carried. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our reports, and we're on to communications and petitions for the committee of the whole. 7 items there. Anybody want to talk about any of those? The Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to make a comment about the Bruce County posting on the proposed 2023 PPS. And in particular, one of their concerns, which I agree with, one of their concerns is that as of December 2022, the ministry role in identifying and approving wetland boundaries was removed. And so their concern is that there was no identification of a clear replacement for the Ministry of Natural Resources to provide support for municipalities. And their comment is that it appears that the intent is to have municipalities take on this function, but we don't have those resources. And also that a removal of provincial oversight means a lack of efficiency and consistency because we have 444 municipalities, not, so that there are many different, it's just not practical and efficient. So I just wanted to point that out and say that I support the county's position on that issue.
Thank you. Further comments on any of these items? Councillor Halpin, then Davinsky, then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillor Grace, I echo your I really agree with your comments, and the idea of the no endangered species removal is they're making it easier to remove habitat from endangered species. And I don't think there's any other way to say it, because that's what they're doing. I believe that it's kind of a chaos strategy of downloading. If you download it, it'll cause enough chaos. There'll be a lack of consistency in it. And I think that it's just designed to weaken environmental protections. I'm really glad the county is speaking out on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was not on that subject, but number 4, the municipality of Chatham-Kent time for change Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act resolution. I think we should be supporting this as they ask. It's an issue that we've been through time and time again, and it costs money. and it takes staff time. So I would like to throw that out to council.
So you'd like to move council supports the resolution from the municipality of Chatham-Kent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is-
Yes.
Is there a seconder for that resolution? The deputy mayor? Any discussion on that? Councillor Halpin.
Just to be the devil's advocate on this, usually these abuses of requests for freedom of information are done by a very, very small minority of the people. You know, and are we, you know, is that just the price of freedom? So just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments to the resolution? I am personally not 100% comfortable with the language of the resolution. My own view is some of this, requests not to expose folks who are expose the person or the threshold for anonymity and whatnot. These questions, I'm uncertain that I support these this resolution, so I'm going to vote against it. Those are my thoughts this time. I can't say that I necessarily support it. Are there further comments? I don't see any, so I'll ask all in favor. Opposed? That's defeated. All right, so now we'll move on to further comment. Oh, sorry, I have the deputy mayor next. The deputy mayor.
Thank you. I had a quick question and then a comment about two of them. There's a source protection committee minutes item here, item 3. I really don't know who our representative is on the source water protection committee. I just wanted to ask, who is the Saugeen Shores person there?
So Councillor Halpin and Mayette will sit on the Source Protection Authority, and maybe can one of you tell us who represents the authority on the committee? The chairman of the authority or chairwoman, the chairwoman Barbara Dobreen will sit on the authority. You're on the authority, not the committee, right? So the committee is the Source Protection Committee is established as a series of public appointees sit on there from representing different organizations. So the town will have a representative in concert with Kincardine and Huron-Kinloss. I think the three of us are grouped together, and then there'll be a representative. And in all honesty, since the election, there hasn't been discussion of that appointee. I'm really not certain. I think what we could do is ask the CAO to
there is a
Regina.
comment in the minutes that some kind of communication is being done to municipalities that have vacancies. So
Okay.
maybe I just genuinely didn't know who it was. So
And I don't think we do either, but we can certainly ask. Why don't we ask the CAO and the clerk just to find that out for us? Okay.
okay. Two other items. Item 6, which is about Bill 3. It's the municipality of Shania, which I had to look up where that was. And it's related to Bill 3 of the Act to amend various statutes resolution. I'm not entirely comfortable with the wording that they have in it, but the message is valid that with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, it's about how the province needs to remember that rural, smaller municipalities are not the same as the Torontos and Londons and Ottawas and Hamiltons of the world. So, I think at some point, there might be a place for us to do something like this that represents that idea, because we certainly don't want you to become a strong mayor, Luke. But I don't like the wording that they have there, but there's something there about not looking at the whole province in the same way in terms of provincial, the province making decisions about authority. I did one of those specifically ask a question related to number 5, which is the township. And I know Councillor Grace has declared an interest. It's the town of Fort Erie. And it's about controls on Airbnb, Verbo, and others which affect municipal rentals. I wanted to, and again, I'm not completely comfortable with the way that they've worded their resolution, but I believe that we're working towards having an agenda item associated with this topic. I just wanted to ask, how we doing with that? When might we expect it? Because it certainly is prevalent, and I have received quite a few calls related to rental situations in areas that you never would have expected a short-term rental to be in. So just, is there any sense of when that might make it onto a council or committee of the whole agenda? Thank you.
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, I won't be able to answer the question when, just because I didn't have time to ask that prior to the meeting tonight, but it is on the 2023 business plan to bring a report forward to council for you to give us direction on how to moving it forward. Similar to what we saw with the clerk's report tonight, it would be a background report, and then it would be included in the 2024 business plan for further work. The municipalities that I've seen that have implemented something along this lines, it's usually a year or 2 of background work to get to the place where you're actually putting in place the measures. So we're probably looking at, we're a couple of years out before, even if council directed us to move in that direction.
Anything further on any of these? I think that I'm not on the resolution from Shanua, whatever. I guess I'm not aware of. I don't believe the government of Ontario is considering strong mayor authority for municipalities of our size at this time. And I certainly agree with the deputy mayor. I think that would be inappropriate. The council manager system works much better in municipalities of our size. So I think certainly we'll keep an eye on that. If it ever became something it looked like was in the offing, we could make comments on them. But I think this resolution is aiming at, is sort of tilting at windmills. I don't think that this is something the province, at least that I'm aware of, is contemplating. Maybe they have inside information, but anyway, is there anything further on any of these? Let's bring back Councillor Grace. Are we done? Before we bring her back, you want to talk about that one? Okay, so let's get that out of our system before we bring her back. The town of item number 5. Councillor Mayette.
Airbnb VRBO item, is that number 5?
Yep, Councillor Mayette.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what the resolution is asking for is for the provincial government to come up with a set of regulations that apply to everybody, as opposed to each municipality coming up with their own rules. As we've seen, there's been a couple as close as our next municipality to the north that jumped the gun, and with any type of bylaw system, there's enforcement involved, and something like that to try and enforce, to find out who's doing it and who's not, because a lot of it's under the radar unless you put the resources towards enforcing that. I agree with the track they've taken, not necessarily verbatim, but I agree with the track they've taken. This issue has been in the media quite a bit lately. There was a session on CBC News last week where they had a panel discussing this very issue, and it's hard to think that it's not affecting the rental market. And I mean, and full disclosure, I was on Airbnb. I am not currently on Airbnb, but I was the third property in Saugeen Shores to be on Airbnb back in 2006 or 7, and now I think there's over 200 in our municipality. So that's a lot of rental properties that are being used that way. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. There's good arguments on both sides of it, both for the property owners and for potential tenants. But I think it is prudent to see what a province-wide solution might be, as opposed to a patchwork set of bylaws that maybe are too far-reaching in some cases, or not as far-reaching as they should be in other cases. So I agree with it in principle. Thank you.
Okay, are there further comments on that particular item 5? I don't see any, so let's bring Councillor Grace back in the room here. So does anybody have anything they'd like to raise on any of the other items 1 through 4 and 6 and 7? I don't see any, so that brings us to the end of the committee of the whole, and we'll do a round of statements by members, and we'll start with the deputy mayor.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I got a whole list here, but just a couple things. The Municipal Heritage Committee, I'll steal a couple of Councillor Grace's and Councillor Halpin's items. The Municipal Heritage Committee had a great representation at the Marine Heritage Festival. It was an extremely well-attended event. I saw a number of us there. We were very successful with button making and a whole lot of other things. So we're back, and hopefully we'll be out at Pumpkin Fest again to bring some heritage messaging, but also just to give people some pictures, which sparked a great deal of conversation. I just wanted to mention that there's some buzz starting to happen around the community about some potential high school reunions. So just, anybody who picks up on that, there's starting to be some people putting together some planning committees. Ross Lamont is one, and there's another group starting too. So it's not connected to the amalgamation anniversary celebrations, but there's something that's a buzz for next summer, which might fit in to the planning. I wanted to comment that I've been watching the success of the lawn bowling club in Southampton, which is a Saugeen Shores lawn bowling club. Actually, the Port Elgin group came over and joined them. The lawn bowling club and the grounds are municipal property, which are leased to a group of people that it was a very small membership, but they've done amazingly well this year to bring people out. And Friday nights, if you haven't driven by or rode your bike by or walked by that location, it's just hopping, and it's so great to see. I'll also mention that I went to the NII Institute about a week and a half ago for a presentation about the new wellness facility that's being that's coming on board later on in October, and I'll leave, maybe Councillor Mayette wants to say a little bit more. He was also at that presentation. And I had occasion to go to County Council again on behalf of the mayor, and I didn't ask him, but I'm going to, on behalf of all council, offer our condolences to you, Luke, and your family on the death of your grandfather. That was a while ago, but it was my second time sitting at the county council table. And so every time I'm learning a little bit more, and certainly I sit down and I know that there's already a good vibe about Saugeen Shore. So our presence is noted at county council. So it was a very good experience being there. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate those comments. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just attended 3 events in July, and I just wanted to echo Deputy Mayor's comments. Marine Heritage Festival was just a huge success. So just a big crowd, and the largest I've seen. I know they were thrilled, and probably gonna have to look at different parking solutions for 2024. It was a full house, and great event. And thanks to all the organizers for the Marine Heritage Festival. Great event. I attended it was the Cycle of Hope, Cycle for Habitat, back on July 20th. And I want to say thank you to Mark Havitz. This group came in from Manitoba, landed, he came by bus to Manitoulin, and then rode the bikes all the way to Niagara, and they raised a significant amount of money. And that was Cycle for Hope Manitoba, where we build habitat homes out there. And I know you were there, Mr. Mayor, and you spoke well, and as you always do. And it was well attended. Unfortunately rainy, but there's a good crowd there. And thanks to Mark Havitz and all the people who organized that event to bring awareness to Habitat for Humanity and get people into their first ever starter home. I just want to say the Bruce Power fireworks, I thought July 29th, how many attended, but I thought it was the best ever. And best ever. They put on a real show that night, and I know the public were extremely happy with. And so thank you to Bruce Power. They're amazing corporate partners in our community, and it's just important that we say thank you to them for that great event. The other thing I want to mention, this is something a little bit. I just want to mention the people who are looking for accommodation in this community, rentals, 1, 2, 3 bedroom rentals. It's a good news story. Now, Barry's Construction now, I think, put it on their 4th floor, just in behind, just south of Haldane Express. it's on Waterloo Street, I guess it is. And behind the retirement lodge, but they're putting on their 4th floor. They're taking reservations, talking to Stu Doyle about this, various construction, and taking reservations for next June. 86 more rental units coming onto the market. And this council knows we're subsidizing 20 some units partnering with the county for the upcoming months. So I think that's a good news story. So people looking for rental accommodation, I know there's 400 or 500 in the works to be built in 2023, 2024. So for those people looking for rental accommodation, for a long time, we had 0% vacancy rates. Prices have skyrocketed, gone through the roof. And hopefully, with these new apartment units coming onto the market, maybe, just maybe, there'll be a slight a rental correction and go the downward direction with their rental costs, because things are pretty high in this community and people are hurting. So that's a good news story. And thank you, Barry's Construction, for investing in our community. And there's more apartment units to be built. So it's good news.
Thank you, Councillor Mayat.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief as I can. Sticking with the water and fish theme, we had a very successful Chantry Derby with the Lake Huron Fishing Club the last week of July and the first week of August, and amazingly enough, the numbers of salmon that were caught this year were staggeringly high compared to the past couple of years. As anybody who's a fisherman knows, that salmon had declined from its high point in the 80s and early 90s. But this year there seems to be a rebound. Whereas last year I think we weighed in a total of 255 salmon in 2022. And this year we had it well over 2,000. I think the final number is going to be around 2,200. So we're talking, a lot more fish, a substantial increase. So that's a good news story for the state of the lake out there. And the economic spin-offs of having that derby in our community and on Georgian Bay side as well. Sticking with the lake theme, I got a note today. I was actually speaking with Francesca Dobbin, our executive director of the United Way, and she participated in the triathlon yesterday. And she wanted me to pass on her kudos to the organizers of that event and the way that they were able to shift the schedule a little bit due to the rain in the morning, but she said it was a fantastic event, very successful, and kudos to Francesca for doing her first triathlon. And I've been lawn bowling 2 times on Friday nights, and it is a lot of fun. It was a full house on Friday night. We were there, and in fact, they had to turn people away for so many people. And so there are other lawn bowling clubs in the vicinity, Owen Sound and the like, that are looking over here and saying, what are you guys doing to get your members out? So the model is probably going to be replicated in other areas. And if you try it, you should. It's actually kind of fun.
Thank you. Councillor Duhaime.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Nothing to report right now. Thanks, just joining.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one. But it was an important one. And it was Friday, July 28th. And it was a hot day, but we did the groundbreaking for the Southampton Care Center. And what an exciting time for all levels of government. My colleague, Cheryl Grace, was there. You were there, Mr. Mayor. And it looked like it was the future, wasn't it? It really was the future. And I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for getting me Olive's name. I couldn't find the name of the young lady, the 2-year-old that was, but we finally, and I bugged the mayor about it, and he finally found out. But it was a wonderful ceremony. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. Back to the Marine Heritage Festival. It was a wonderful event. I just wanted to say, in terms of the Municipal Heritage Committee representation, the deputy mayor did all the work on that. And thank her very much for all the organization and hauling equipment and materials and all the creativity of that presentation. It was fantastic. And the Marine Heritage Society is just besides the festival, which was incredible. Their tours have been very successful this summer. All the work that goes into the preparation for those tours year round is amazing. All volunteer except for 2 students who are terrific as well, who are paid for by grants. But we have about 125 volunteers who work year round to maintain the boat, the docks, all of the dedicated work. So thank you very much for that. And I also wanted to thank our staff and all the musicians who make the Sunday night concerts possible throughout the summer at the Fairy Lake Pavilion in Southampton and the Emmett McGrath Pavilion in Port Elgin. People really love those. It's another feature of what makes our community such a great place to be in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Halpin. And well, I guess going last means everything's already been said. So so thanks very much, everybody, for all your comments. Been a long time since we've met, and lots of good things have happened, and got a good synopsis. So with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Halpin. All in favor. The committee of the whole stands adjourned, and we will reconvene at 8:25 for regular council. Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting. Second item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare at this time. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have two. One applies to the meeting of council, the minutes for July 12th, 2023. I was not in attendance for that meeting, so I am now declaring a conflict of interest for item 6.1, the planning report, which is a draft plan of subdivision S-2022-001 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-2022-040 Innes Robinson. And for tonight's meeting, I'm declaring a conflict of interest for 4.1, the adoption of minutes for the regular council minutes of July 12th, 2023. The nature of the conflict is that my cousins are some of the applicants for that planning application, and my relationship with them creates a reasonable apprehension of bias.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other pecuniary interests to declare? Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We do have an addition to the agenda, and so there is a resolution that item number 9.5, Aquatic and Wellness Center fundraising update, be added to the August 14th, 2023 council meeting agenda. Is there a mover and seconder to make that amendment to the agenda? Davinsky and the deputy mayor. Discussion? If not, all in favor? That is carried. Okay. Thank you. So now we'll move on to adoption of the minutes, and we have the regular council minutes of July 10th, 2023, the regular council minutes of July 12th, 2023, and the committee of the whole minutes of July 10th, 2023. It's recommended that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meetings of July 10th and 12th, 2023, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of July 10th, 2023 as presented. I mean, it's up to you to declare pecuniary interest if you have one. Okay, so Councillor Grace is, just to be noted, is has declared pecuniary interest on the July 12th minutes, and so is leaving the discussion. So is there a mover and seconder to adopt those minutes? The deputy mayor and Councillor Halpin. Any discussion? The deputy mayor.
It's not a discussion per se, but one of the minutes, sorry, I didn't write down which one, was when the proposed Clean Yards bylaw was here for the first opportunity. There's no indication of it coming back in terms of the timing. I thought there was mention of something in the meeting which suggested when it would be back. It's just not in the minutes. So do we have a sense of when we might see that item again?
Is there on the question of the minutes to the clerk, are we aware of anything being omitted from the minutes on that about the timing of when that particular item will return for consideration by council?
Oh, I'm not concerned that it was omitted. I just recall something during the meeting. So I just wanted to, because I just, it's a good topic.
I see what you're saying.
Don't
Okay.
want to lose,
So
don't want to lose the flow.
So we will get a report, we'll get information to you via the CAO about that. Okay. So on the minutes, any further errors or omissions? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. Okay, so now we're moving on to, we have no public meeting, and Councillor Grace is returning. So we're going to move on to close to public, and we are going into close to public to discuss personal matters about identifiable individuals in relation to committee appointments and the Aquatic and Wellness Center fundraising, and to discuss a discussion regarding potential sale of land on Beach Road. And so the resolution is that council move into a closed to public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392, as follows. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by Grace, seconded by Halpin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Council will convene in the committee room for the closed session. Okay, so council is rising and resuming the public regular council meeting, and I can report that council gave direction to staff about personal matters about identifiable individuals in relation to committee appointments and the Aquatics and Wellness Center. No, about the committee appointments. Council received information about the Aquatics and Wellness Center fundraising. And council gave direction to staff with regard to discussion regarding a potential sale of land on Beach Road. And so we'll move on to business arising from the close to public. And there's a verbal report from the clerk that we will hear now.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. In the closed public session, council had the opportunity to review and discuss the individuals put forward by the striking committee for appointment to the Committee of Adjustment and Fence Viewers. Following the resignation of Nancy Darlington Smith from the Committee of Adjustment, council needed to appoint a new member of the public to that committee. The striking committee reviewed the applications received at the beginning of the 2022-2026 term and recommended that Hope Wallace be contacted to ensure her continued interest in the committee appointment. With her acceptance, Ms. Wallace is now being recommended for appointment. The Line Fences Act is a seldom used piece of legislation in Ontario. However, the municipality is required to have fence viewers appointed in case they are needed. Fence viewers have quasi-judicial powers, meaning they have the ability to render decisions on a matter within their jurisdiction. Specifically, they hear applications on the construction, repair, maintenance, and cost sharing for fences along property boundaries when one or more neighbor may not agree. The striking committee again considered the applications received from the beginning of the term. Michael Martin, Herb Schmidt, and Nancy Wanch were recommended and accepted the appointment. In the closed public meeting, directed staff to prepare this verbal report and a recommendation in the open council meeting. Staff prepared a proposed bylaw to adopt the appointments. The recommendation is as follows. The council accepts the resignation of Nancy Darlington Smith from the Committee of Adjustment and that Hope Wallace be appointed as a member of the Committee of Adjustment. The Michael Martin, Herb Schmidt, and Nancy Wanch be appointed as fence viewers in accordance with the Line Fences Act, and that appointment bylaw 71-2023 is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 14th day of August, 2023.
Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Halpin. Any discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're moving on to reports of the Committee of the Whole, and there is a resolution there that Council received the Town of Saugeen Shores 2023 Strategic Plan Phase 3 report for information. The Council received the 2023 Major Initiatives and Division Highlights Quarter 2 Update Report for information. The Council approved option number 1, 2 separate departments, community services and operations, organizational structure, including the immediate staffing requirements, and the Council directs staff to return in Quarter 3 with a transition plan and final costing estimate for the Aquatic and Wellness Center staffing implementation as outlined in option 1. The Council received the Aquatic and Wellness Center Community Engagement Update Report for information. The Council received the Procurement Options with eSupply Canada Report for information. The Council received the Audit Planning Report for information. The Council received the Proposed Clean Yards Bylaw Report for information. And the Council approved an amending bylaw to update the Establishing and Regulatory Bylaw 25-2023 to clarify the Fire Department's involvement in nearshore and offshore water rescue, and that Council directs staff to advance an operating procedure with the Marine Heritage Society to clarify the use of the Peerless 2 for nearshore support and offshore Coast Guard water rescue, and that Council directs staff to resume responding to neighboring municipalities for marine search and rescue responses under agreements that facilitate cost recovery. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Grace. Any discussion? I would just note that I've been talking to the chief about item 8, and some advocacy, I believe, is going to happen with the Coast Guard and the OPP to advance our interest in terms of seeing their services increased and improved to serve the waters off the town of Saugeen Shores. So with that, I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Okay, so now we're on to item 9, report of municipal officers and committees. And the first item there is a striking committee procedural bylaw amendment. And there is a recommendation that proposed procedural bylaw amendments as endorsed by the striking committee be presented to council for consideration. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by Grace, seconded by Halpin. Discussion to the resolution. Seeing none, then all in favor? That's carried. Next is a staff report on the Housing Accelerator Fund and Housing Action Plan. And there is a resolution that council approve in principle the Housing Action Plan required for the town's application to the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Discussion on that item. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jay, for the report. And this is really promising and gives us some hope. I wanted to ask you a question about the timeline for completion of the initiatives.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor and Council. Timelines, the application requires the submission of an action plan, and the way the application is set out is that we have to commit to completing initiatives over the 3-year period. To be successful, the idea is to actually accelerate housing permissions in the town. So the sooner we can complete the initiatives, the better. But our preliminary application is that we would like to moderately and reasonably implement them over the next 3 years, with immediately starting with the community planning permit system implementation.
Yeah, Councillor Grace.
Thanks. I also wanted to just comment on the final comment in your report about the fact that because this is such an intensive process and an important process and important for us to try to achieve these grants, but that town's policy focus would be almost entirely dedicated to housing, would increase the workload of Development Services Department and may affect other topics such as the environment. So of course, I wasn't happy to see that. I'm just wondering if you've given, or if your department has given some thoughts to other ways that I would think that we wouldn't be ignoring everything in, to dedicate ourselves to this. So.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's evident as well that we're exploring hiring contract staff, which we think we're eligible for to help pay for the implementation of the initiatives. We're exploring with CMHC to find out exactly what the parameters of that are. It's obvious we could hire consultants, but can we hire a consultant contract? Perhaps. I don't know. I'm not getting any sense from CMHC that it'll be a big hurdle, but we just want to acknowledge it as a reality of the plan.
Thank you. Further comments from members? I think it's just a great initiative on your part and on the part of the department to find ways for us to attempt to access the Housing Accelerator Fund. I mean, it's a program that the federal government has put in place, with the intent of incentivizing us to do everything we can to get out of the way of having more housing built. I think we've heard a lot from certain people at the federal level and also folks at the provincial level that municipal regulation is an issue when it comes to meeting the affordable housing targets of the province of Ontario, and certainly our own targets. And so you can see here from this list of work that we're already doing, a lot of it's work we're already doing, the work the town of Saugeen Shores is doing to improve our regulatory structure to the best of our ability to make affordable housing and attainable housing a priority and get it constructed in our community. And I guess it's just a great opportunity for us to get some funding to support that as well. But it requires us to show some results. too, which I think is fair and appropriate. So anyway, I just want to say thanks for your work on it, Jay, and I'm looking forward to seeing our success in this application. So we have, well, you've heard the resolution and it's been moved and seconded. So I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thanks very much. So then that moves us on to item 3, which is a resolution on the non-union salary administration policy. And there is a resolution that council adopt bylaw 69, 2023, a bylaw to amend bylaw 90, 2019, which is a bylaw to consolidate and establish employment policies for employees, to delete the total compensation policy and replace it with the non-union salary administration policy. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on that resolution? There's just another one where I want to express appreciation to the Manager of Human Resources and the Department of Corporate Services for their work on this. It's really vital if we're going to be an employer of choice, which is certainly one of our goals as an organization, to have a really fair and consistent approach to cost of living increases in all of our employees. And I think, and we're very fortunate in Saugeen Shores to have an excellent relationship with our non-union employees and our unionized employees around compensation. And I think it's incumbent on council to find ways to be very fair with them, to have a transparent and clear approach for how we're going to arrive at those cost of living increases. So this does that. I think it's a really fine policy, and I appreciate all the work that the administration has done to deliver it. So with that, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. And then item 4 is a staff report on the summer student wage grid. And there's a resolution that council approved the summer student wage grid effective in 2024. So mover and seconder for that. Moved by Halpin, seconded by Grace. Discussion on this one, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just for clarification, in the wage grid, step 1 is when someone first starts a job. Is step 2 if they come back a second year? Step 3 is after. Okay, thank you. I got some nods on that. Thank you.
The answer was yes, in case folks listening at home didn't see.
I appreciate the grid. I don't know if we've done enough though to really solidify our position as an employer of choice for students. So hopefully, we can do more going forward. This is a good step, but I think it's going to be harder and harder to recruit and retain student employees. And some of the job titles that are here are incredible positions that help out a great deal over a very important season here, summer. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Are there further comments? I didn't see in here, and maybe I missed it, but in the report, any comment about what our neighboring municipalities are paying for similar positions, or is what's recommended here something that puts us in line or slightly ahead of the folks who are essentially our competitors for some of the employees in these positions?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. This increase puts us more aligned with what other municipalities have done to make sure that they're staying ahead of the increases of minimum wage, to make sure that they're competitive with other organizations that are doing the same. And I think too, by adding that additional dollar above as the starting point and then maintaining the 50 cents per hour increase for returning students, we're hoping that that provides a greater incentive for our students to come back year over year.
Okay, sounds like a reasonable approach to it. There's Councillor Duhaime.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor, just a question for the manager of HR. Have we had trouble recruiting students from Saugeen Shores in the past couple of years?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Duchesne. Yes, we have. This summer, we saw less struggle than we had the previous summer. Some of the excuses that we've had to explain the challenges, some of them are aligned with our pay rates. Some of the returning students that we had hoped to have back had secured employment in their area of study. So that isn't something that we're likely going to be able to change. And we encourage students, of course, to get experience in their field. But at least on the wage scale, this will help us eliminate that reason for students not coming back.
Okay,
thank you.
anything? Yep. Okay, thank you. Anything else on this one? Well, thanks for your work on this. Hopefully it will work and we'll get some good summer students recruited next year with these changes. So with that, I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. All right, so now we're on to item 5, which is a staff report on the Aquatics and Wellness Center fundraising update, and we'll take the report first from the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the October 11th, 2022 meeting, council approved a 2-year project coordinator contract position within community services with a budget of $232,000 to support elements of the Aquatic and Wellness Center project. After multiple attempts, the recruitment for the contract position did not advance. At the May 23rd, 2023 meeting, staff updated council that instead of hiring this contract, they'd engaged 2 consultants to focus on the fundraising requirements of the Aquatic and Wellness Center. Unfortunately, the fundraising lead resigned in July. I'm pleased to announce tonight that Tracy Murray, Chief Philanthropy and Partnerships at Grey Bruce Health Services, is the town's new fundraising lead. Tracy has started with the town in a part-time capacity and is currently working to develop a fundraising strategy for council's consideration in September. One of the things that was learned through the transition of the discussions around this was that the administrative aspects of the campaign are large in relationship to the build. The scope and scale of a fundraising strategy that would support the Aquatic and Wellness Center is not something that is able to be managed or administered through existing staff workload, nor through the contract positions as they are part-time. Administration at this scale requires dedicated resources. It is therefore recommended that council consider additional funding to support the hiring of a contract fundraising assistant to support the fundraising campaign. This position would be posted as soon as possible with a goal of having an individual in place in October, November, and the contract would go until June 2025 to close out the fundraising campaign. This would be a total of a 20-month contract. Specifically, what is being requested is $135,000, which is that 20-month contract, as well as an additional $100,000 in operational funding to support the strategy. The operational funding would be used to fund items like event support, campaign branding, website design and development, print assets, advertising, direct mail, and donor and community outreach. As noted, further details of this strategy would be brought forward to council in September, which would also include a proposed budget. The groundbreaking for the Aquatic and Wellness Center is well aligned with this timeframe, as we are looking at a September groundbreaking that would align with the launch of this strategy. Therefore, the recommendation is made to council that council approve $235,000 in funding to support a fundraising assistant position, as well as operational funding for the Aquatic and Wellness Center fundraising campaign. The $235,000 requested would be applied against the capital costs of the project and will ultimately be offset by any fundraising dollars realized. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from members? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to, I do oppose this. I just think we need to go back to community, to grassroots. We've already, forming a local fundraising campaign team, maybe 6 or 8 people from Port Elgin, 6 or 8 people from Southampton, perhaps, or one committee overall. Have a very much community driven. As you know, we did run a very successful Lamont Sports Park fundraising campaign. It was close to $2 million with volunteers. There was a significant amount of staff support for that campaign. I don't question that, but I think there needs to be some kind of commitment with existing staff to take minutes at a meeting and provide some support. Not to the tune of another $232,000. To date, we have approved $232,000 and another $60,000 for a government lobby group to try and find out where grants could be available and putting some pressures on levels of government support applications. And that takes it to $520,000 if we support this tonight. I really think we should keep it simple, and I like to think there's about 15 naming opportunities. I could be wrong with that number, but I like to see $1 million name on the building. I think it's out there. I really do. I think we could put a name on the fitness facility and the pool and walking track and some of our other rooms. And, you know, I think having Tracy Murray on staff is excellent. A lot of people know her from the hospital foundation, the work she does. And Robert Stanley was co-chair of the Lamont committee, very qualified. So those 30 hours a week, I support that $200 and some $1,000 for those two people over 2 years. But I just think we should keep this simple and go out and ask for 15 asks. Significant donations from I mean, Bruce Power is obviously one, and the suppliers and our service clubs, but there's 15 presentations out there that can be made, and let's get to that $2.5–3 million, which I think is a workable number for a fundraising campaign. I'm not sure we'll be able to get to $5–6 million like Owen Sound did with their Family Y, but I just think that we can do this with those two staff members at 30 hours a week. If there's some administrative help, required, I'm not sure it's $232,000 worth for administration and a fundraiser. If we need 10 hours a week, to help take minutes or do some clerical work, administrative work, I maybe could support that for $20,000 or $30,000. But I just think, you look at town of Goderich raised $1.5–2 million. I think it was 1.5, ran with volunteers. Our Lamont committee was volunteer. I've spoken to a fair number of people that like to sit on a volunteer fundraising committee here in Saugeen Shores. I don't think you need to run multiple events for this campaign. I think you do those 15 asks, get in and out for $2.5–3 million. Yeah, some big ones, $1 million, on a 500 perhaps, a few at 100, and those 15 asks can be done with Tracy Murray and Rob Stanley. So I don't think you need to add another whole new layer to this. I've been involved with 8 or 10 campaigns in my career over 40 years, and I've been involved with a fair number of campaigns that are volunteer driven. So I think we can do this. I think we can do this with Tracy and Rob. They're very qualified individuals, and turn them loose with a video presentation and get out into those boardrooms and meet with some service clubs and pull in that $2.5–3 million. I think that should be the campaign personally. That should be a target. So anyway, that's my thought on it. I won't be supporting the recommendation for another $235,000. I just can't get there with this one. So
Okay, the CAO has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to highlight that the amount in the report and the recommendation is not solely for the contract position. It also is for additional operating funding. And if we are to run any kind of fundraising campaign, we will require operational dollars in order to do that. But that could return when the strategy comes back to council for consideration.
All right, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Just a follow up to that comment. Kara, I understand, you correct me if I'm wrong, but when our former fundraising coordinator was hired was Mr. Stanley, and maybe Schreids could answer this, but is there not already $40,000 allocated for operational costs?
The CAO.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. And then, like I said, we would bring a budget back for council that would include that as well.
So I think there's already 40,000 approved for that purpose. So I just think this is rich, and I just don't think we need to spend another $250,000.
Understood. Are there further comments from members? And I guess I make my comments at this point. I agree with the Vice Deputy Mayor in that, I think the important thing to remember here is that the municipality has put the financing in place to construct this facility, right? Where the difference between this campaign and some others, the Lamont Park one, for example, or even I think the Julie McCarthy, although I could stand to be corrected, is that those campaigns were necessary to get the project to happen. And this is different. The municipality has organized itself so it can construct and fully fund the project. What we're doing now, I think, is a campaign because there are opportunities here for folks to put their name on elements of this facility. And I think those opportunities are worth money. And I think we can offset the cost to the taxpayer somewhat by selling those opportunities. And so it's really, as the Vice Deputy Mayor puts it, an opportunity for us to take these, and we have two really excellent people who have done big campaigns and who have lots of connections, both of them, who could go make those connections to the large players who might be interested and sell those elements to them and raise that money. And so I think that it can be a very simple campaign. I don't think that we're in a position of needing to go out in a huge way with multiple events and really rattle cages for many, many donations. There's lots of great causes in our community and lots of great places for folks to donate their money. And I don't think this project needs to compete with that for a long period of time in an aggressive way. So I think we have a good opportunity here with those couple of folks to make those asks as the Vice Deputy Mayor has laid out, and do that in a way that sort of conforms at least approximately to the budget we've already established. I think the CAO has laid it out in a good way. We can get a strategy using the resources that we already have and see how far they can take it in terms of making those few asks and selling those naming rights. So that's what I'd like to get back. I'm not going to be in favor of $500,000 to raise money for this. I think we have to remember too, we have other irons in the fire in terms of looking to other levels of government for funding, making applications to a series of funding sources for this project. And as I said at the beginning, and I'll say it again, and I've said it many times over the last number of years, the municipality has spent a long time organizing itself so it can pay for this project. So its shovels are going in the ground in September. I'm going to be swimming in it in December of 2025. And I just keep saying the date because it keeps the pressure on. But that's going to happen. There's some great opportunities here for folks who want to have their name on that building, get your name on the building, on the walking track, on the big elements, to do that and get that notoriety and show that support for our community. And I think those sales can be made by the folks we have. As I say, with a budget that approximates the one we have. I'm eager to hear back a detailed plan. And if there are some small changes to it, then I certainly would be open to that. But I don't want to go as far as we're suggesting here now. So those are my views. Any other thoughts, Councillor Grace?
Yes, I just wanted to check. So we do have funds available to produce a nice slick fundraising video. Do we have that available?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that'll be the details we put together. So we'll have to take a look at the available operational dollars and what that would allow us to do.
Okay,
So I can't answer that tonight. I'll bring that back to you in September.
thank you.
The Vice Deputy Mayor.
I just want to make clear, I just want to follow up on one item. And I think those 15 presentations are very doable with these two people for $250,000, or what 150, 200, whatever the amount is. I don't think we should rule out completely that group of six. I've spoken to people in this community saying, how can I help? Can I run one project to sell 500, build a brick, a brick campaign for $500,000. So, and that does not have to be a ton of work. One project with the 15 asks. We're looking at a $250,000 budget, right? So I want to make it clear tonight and go on record by saying that I hope we don't overlook the fact that the community wants to be involved with this campaign. I've heard from many people saying, how can I fund? How can I help? So I just want to rule that out with this discussion tonight about those 15 asks. So
Understood. And we're going to get a report back with it later. But it has to be made abundantly clear that the staff resources to support it are finite. And so the more complicated the campaign becomes, the more of our staff resources are required. And the reason why the CAO has brought the request she has brought is because it's her evaluation that funding would be required to support that. So I think we'll see what comes back, see what is possible within the budget window that we have established, but let's not set our expectations too high on what might come back. I think we can have a very good campaign for what we've to raise a good amount of money for the money we have. And we'll see what that looks like when we get this recommendation back, or report, I should say. Anything, and that's to, I guess I'm just sort of presupposing the outcome of this vote, but there is a recommendation here that council, I have it. The recommendation is that council approve $235,000 for the creation of a fundraising assistant contract position and additional operation funding as outlined. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? It's moved by Mayette, seconded by Halpin. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor? And opposed? That's defeated. Okay. So we'll move on then to, we have no motions or notices, so we'll move on to bylaws, and the bylaw, well, two bylaws there for consideration. There's a recommendation that bylaws 68, 2023 and 69, 2023 are hereby read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed and sealed this 14th day of August, 2023. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And then item 12 is a confirmatory bylaw, and I have a resolution that bylaw 70, 2023, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 14th day of August, 2023. Is there a mover and seconder? Grace and Davinsky, all in favor? That is carried. And finally, adjournment. We have a resolution that this regular council meeting of August 14th, 2023 hereby adjourns at 9:49 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? The deputy mayor and Halpin, all in favor? Council stands adjourned. Thank you all very much and have a good evening.